Hello, it's Sean Turner here, Heritage Party Kent Coordinator. Today I was going to talk to you about the National Emergency Briefing. Chris Packham, the UK's climate alarmist character, held a briefing in Westminster in November 2025.
In 2019, the Executive Intelligence Review reports George Soros listed as being the top donor to Extinction Rebellion.
The video for this briefing is now being distributed around the country by various climate action network groups. I and a couple of residents went along to the Maidstone event in Kent just to see what the video is all about. And here are my findings.
Needs a response similar to the scale of the Second World War.
We are in the thick of a crisis. We all have to act.
It's getting worse fast, and we're not prepared.
Absolutely terrified for that of my son. We're a governable state.
Oh my goodness. Taken for a fool, my friend.
Part 1. A Crumbling Agenda. The Rise of Climate Fear-Mongering.
To people, along with the fear-mongering of climate alarmism, and it's disturbing to see a whole generation, not all young people, but a lot of young people, are just completely brainwashed into believing we need to change something because the planet is going to fry in the future. So they accept it because of the propaganda.
I'm going to tell you about a threat that will affect everyone in this room, every family in this country, and every constituent on global food supplies in the face of accelerating climate change and nature loss. Empty supermarket shelves, people queuing for hours for food, protests and civil unrests. We are facing an increasingly chaotic system. So we're talking droughts, floods, wildfires, and heat extremes that are all increasing. One study in a top journal found that before climate change, a major corn harvest failure might happen once every 16 years. And it's not just corn, but other crops like soy. We see some areas become available for agriculture as the world warms. Overall, we'll lose around a third of the land suitable for food by the end of this century.
It's happened at around 2 degrees centigrade of global warming. On the right, you're seeing a remarkable comeback of the Arctic sea ice cover that happens if we cross this tipping point. In London, it's minus 20 degrees C and 3 frozen months of the year. And in Edinburgh, it's minus 30 degrees C and 5.5 frozen months of the year, 1.4 degrees warmer world. So the seasonality of the UK, the climate, is like nothing we've ever seen before. It's radically increased. The version is it eliminates the possibility to grow crops in the UK. This will be the least of our worries because there'd be a major water security crisis. We calculate that there'd be not enough water from the winters to get through the summers in the south.
And again, by severe floods in recent years. Do you remember Germany in 2021? Valencia in October 2024, 3/4 of a metre of rain fell in just 24 hours. And it killed over 5,000 people in Libya. Village in the Peak District. Winters meant deep snow, school closures, and summers were warm but rarely hot. 50 years, our use of fossil fuels has dramatically increased the concentration of greenhouse gases. It increased much faster than average weather. 8 million in England will be at risk of flooding. And 20 millimetres of rainfall each winter sounds really small. But across the UK, that's 7.3 billion cubic metres of extra water.
Chris Packham is advocating to get this video televised.
I'm an optimist. I first started listening to you just before Brexit, and I'm glad you drew the parallel with Brexit because we've got a similar situation here. We're allowing corporate interests to shape the public conversation,
yes, and
the government is shying away from briefing the public on the very real threats and severe threats to British society in the near term, not in the distant future. People are very unaware of it. So I'm the co-founder of the National Emergency Briefing, and we did a big event in London last year where we had actual experts briefing politicians and influential people, and we've now made a film featuring Chris Packham called The People's Emergency Briefing, and it's being screened by community groups and churches and workplaces and all sorts all over the country. And it's about briefing people. And what we're finding is that people just don't realise the effects that are coming, you know, the threats to food supply, the threats to health and national security. You know, we had a general speaking there.
Really? And then there are some people who are going to make loads of money out of it because the people who are wind barons and solar barons and put up these solar panels all over the countryside are going to get loads of money from the government. So they're happy with it.
Is if I can convince you that there are also what I call positive tipping points where the change towards zero emissions technologies and behaviours can itself become self-accelerating. Dominantly fossil-fuelled state of the economy, but we can all picture a different economy and society powered by clean, renewable energy. But we've already seen how in some sectors and in some nations, how actions, including policy actions, can lower the hilltop, can destabilise the fossil fuel status quo, and can activate amplifiers within the system that then create a self-propelling change from the old emitting, dirty way of doing things to the clean, low emissions way of doing things.
That this landscape is still quite confused and is not as joined up and as focused as we feel it needs to be for the delivery of these plans. Decisions about where to reinforce electricity networks, where to zone for heat networks, where to focus on insulation or heat pump installment, where to roll out EV infrastructure, cannot sensibly be taken in Whitehall alone. They depend on the fundamental character of our local housing stock, patterns of local industry, levels of fuel poverty, and the capacity of local grids.
At its heart, Vattenfall is working for fossil freedom. It's addressing that challenge directly for how we can work, live, travel, and enjoy life without that reliance on fossil fuels.
We have 26 million gas boilers in this country, and that is not the answer to decarbonising our planet. It's not a sustainable solution. And in densely populated urban areas, it's likely that district heating will be the lowest cost, low carbon solution for that area. And the technology itself is actually pretty simple. We're putting in large insulated steel pipes in the ground and then taking hot water and piping it directly into homes and businesses. What's revolutionary about district heating is the way that we heat that water. We're doing it by using shared heat that is already here in the atmosphere, and it ends up hot enough that we can give you hot water and hot homes 24/7 all year round.
A major planning application was quietly approved in Mid-Kent, reference 25504210 full. It authorised the construction of a massive, below-ground district heating network originating from the Allington waste-to-energy plant. When the public hears energy from waste, they think of eco-friendly recycling and saving the polar bears. They do not realise they are looking at the installation of a district heating network, the ultimate mechanism for centralised domestic control. District heating requires the systematic removal of your independent boiler. It replaces it with a centralised municipal pipe that pumps hot water into your home. It sounds like a lovely, warm embrace from the state, doesn't it? Except, they control the valve. They control the supply. They control the price. We are constantly told the NHS is bankrupt, frontline services are collapsing, and there is no money for direct patient care. Yet, according to Emma Pinchbeck, the chief executive of the Statutory Climate Change Committee, CCC, there is somehow plenty of money to rip out your domestic heating system. Speaking at the UK 100s conference, Pinchbeck revealed the true operational target of local climate policy: your home. She explicitly stated, "I need to get boilers out of their homes." How do they plan to fund this? By raiding health budgets. Pinchbeck openly praised pilots that link NHS budgets to upgrading people's homes, specifically citing schemes that use NHS money to replace private boilers under the guise of respiratory health. Let that sink in. The NHS has no money to provide direct services to sick patients, but it is actively being positioned to fund the replacement of your home's exterior and interior infrastructure to meet net zero targets.
Whereas if you buy a barrel of oil, as soon as you burn that, you need to buy another one. And the price that you pay for it is determined by a cartel of petrostates or subject to the whim of dictators. Renewables are also vastly more efficient than fossil fuels. Fossilised remain.
I am trying to scare people because the path that we're on has consequences that are genuinely scary.
Is net zero the new religion?
It bears so many hallmarks of religion.
So I'm Councillor Stuart Jeffrey, leader of Maidstone Borough Council, loyal servant of the goddess Gaia, and I will have my vengeance in this life or the next. This is an existential problem. So yeah, it is ideological. It is an obsession, but it's also the right thing to do.
6,000 to 8,000 people per year were dying in the UK because they couldn't adequately heat their homes.
There have been death threats, haven't there?
I've had 2 that I've had to report to the police. Where I do think we're starting to get something sinister is when you see...
That's potentially scarier than all of the propaganda around net zero.
This doesn't pass the smell test. I have actually never felt physically sick by a policy announcement before.